Hello, 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 and welcome back to the show. This is Kat, and you are tuning into Kreatrix. And today I have returning guest, friend, and colleague, Sandra Orndorff here in the flesh, live in the studio. So welcome, Sandra. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm excited to be here in the flesh.
In the flesh, in the 3D. Because today we're going to talk about a little bit about being in the ethers. We're going to talk about being guided by your intuition and what is that like and what does that feel like, and maybe some tools that might help some of us get there. So we're just gonna live stream or stream of consciousness. That's what you said before, and we're just gonna go for it. We don't have a script, but we want to talk about this topic because it's coming up for a lot of people. It comes up in the ethers and in the collective, and we're just gonna go with it. So here we are. So Sandra, do you want to start off telling anybody about what your thoughts about that or who they are? If they want to learn more about you, you're on like 3 other episodes, they can tune in. So
yeah,
go for it.
All right. Intuition. I think a lot of people are talking about intuition now. Like more people than I mean, it's always been here, right? Like we use terms like, follow your gut, like follow your heart. Like, we know this thing about intuition, but I think that more people are realizing that they're being guided, but they also don't trust it. So to me, this word trust goes with intuition because we don't trust, like, is this in my imagination? And so I have a little story. I'm a storyteller. I always tell stories.
I love stories.
So I'm down at my beach house and I'm renting one of those rug cleaners, and it's a process of getting your name or whatever. And the lady said to me, if it doesn't work, I'm here, call me. Sure enough, the apparatus to clean my steps didn't work. And the next day I go in and I'm like, by the way, it didn't work. It's fine. I used it for the other purposes. And she said, I had a premonition. And I said, you know what? It's funny that you say that because I remember you making a big point of, if it doesn't work, I'm working here, no problem. Give me a call. And I just sat there and thought about it for a minute. I'm like, this is an opportunity. So I said to her, does this happen often? And she stopped and she goes, yeah, sometimes. And I said, yeah, exactly. And then I told her my story about getting a hit. That's what I call when I get this like nudge, intuition.
Okay.
And I'd had it multiple times. And I said, I started telling people I was going to go to Egypt because all things Egypt kept showing up for me. So I decided that I had to speak it out loud because no one was going to believe me. That I had the premonition. Like if it happened. So I started saying to people, I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know when, I'm going to Egypt. And they thought I was crazy because they're like, why Egypt? Like, why do you want to go to Egypt? And well, I wanted to go to Egypt because it was drawing me there magnetically. But I was like, I don't know why I want to go to Egypt. I don't know why I'm supposed to be in Egypt, but I know it's going to happen. So I'm just going to say it now. And I would even preface it like this. I'm saying this because I know it's going to happen. So part of, I feel like for me, is that when some of us really do get guided by this intuition, we need to start speaking it out loud, because in retrospect, people never believe you. You can tell them 100 days of Sunday, like, I knew this was going to happen. And they go, yeah, right. However, if you speak it out loud, and then it happens, they might take notice and start believing you. And I think that really I was being called to not just do it for myself, but also like put it out there for other people, because I was starting to trust it. And I really felt like other people were, starting to wonder if that was true. And sure enough, it just dropped in my lap. Literally, like, this trip just like fell in my lap. And I was like, and then I look at my husband, he's like, well, you got to go. And I'm like, I know I've got to go, because I'm like, it dropped in my lap. That's the thing about intuition. Like, if you start saying it and then it happens, it's like, all right, here's the test of your trust. Are you going to trust it now to actually put it into action?
And I love that part of the story, because you said it dropped in but you were speaking it into existence because
Yes.
you had that intuitive hit.
Yes.
But then you took the action steps to actually, when that opportunity for the trip came up,
Yeah.
you took action, you booked it, and you went.
That's right.
And there is that part of, when we talk about intuition, it's not just hearing it and listening to it, it's taking the action steps, and we're being guided, but are we stepping into the guidance? And for me, that's where I stopped a lot of the time. Like,
Yeah.
I heard stuff, I knew stuff. And of course I thought I was crazy because everyone else thought I was crazy. Right.
Yeah.
But I wasn't acting on it. So I didn't know. And when we act on it, we get feedback and information to build that trust muscle. Right.
That's right.
But I also find the inverse is true. When we get that information and we don't act on it and we see how things panned out, it's also information that, oh, it is good to act on it and trust it.
Yes.
So it's really multifaceted. And I love the first story
Yes.
you told about the cleaning apparatus and,
Mhm.
and the woman, because it happens to everybody. Like even
Everybody.
in the most normalized situations, we all get those feelings and those thoughts.
Yes.
But how do we trust them?
Yes.
And how do we take action on them? Like take it out into the world, into the 3D.
Into the 3D, because honestly, at least with the Egypt trip, my husband had just had he had just had a knee operation. He couldn't even be in the car for 2
remember.
hours. He could not go on this trip with me. There was no
Mhm.
way. And I was going to do this by myself. So I was going to be going to Egypt completely by myself. Not by myself. I was going to a conference, but I was having to do all the travel by myself. So there was a moment of fear.
Yeah.
I had to get past the fear. I had to actually step into that and go, there's something bigger here. I have to trust the bigger part of me and not the smaller part of me. Because if I had got stuck, and I had to get through passport hurdles. So I had to keep stepping into trust. I had to keep doubt, faith, doubt, faith, doubt, faith, fear, trust, fear, trust, fear, trust. People just want to have the intuition as if it's going to drop in you. And it's like that part of putting it into action is converting fear to faith, doubt to trust. It's like all these little steps that we talk about in our life, but they're all connected to the intuition, in my opinion.
I like that. And what I feel like I'm hearing you saying is that the fear never actually always goes away, right?
Not for me.
And I think for a lot of us, because I think some people like, oh, when we're guided or we do the thing, there's no fear. One of my first coaching taglines was like, I help women face their fears and learn to trust themselves again. Because the fear does come up.
Mm-hmm.
But you do the thing anyways, or you use tools to maybe help yourself get through that fear and take the action.
Yeah.
When you were in this process for Egypt, like going to Egypt and traveling alone, which you're used to traveling with your husband, it sounds like, were there any things that you did, any breathing tools, any other tools to help you step into, like, move beyond the fear? Like, I'm going to do this next thing anyways, even though it's scary, even though these hurdles or challenges that came up. Like, what helps you?
Yeah, I think for that, I really just kept remembering the signs, like all the signs, and pay attention to the signs. And also even just like, there was a lot of hurdle with my passport and the timing of it and all. And it was like, okay, so I'm going to do the step, but then I'm going to trust that if it really isn't meant to be, that a hurdle would happen and I wouldn't be able to go. Like, it was almost like, maybe it wasn't the thing. Maybe it was the fact that I was going through the process, but this is a whole new endeavor for me. Even like doing this kind of work is a big leap of faith and trust that really has come out of body. But, like, I gathered some of the things that helps me. One of the first things when I was in a crisis is I went to a shop and I was like one of those people, like, give me whatever is going to help me. And she, not this one, but she gave me 2 crystals, and I literally was like in crisis mode. And the holding that at night, I woke up the next morning and I didn't believe it. I thought it was hokey, but I was so desperate that I was willing to do anything. And I slept with these things. One was a green, I forget what it is. Anyway, it was heart and was a grounding, and I slept with it clenched. I woke up the next day and I said, I know how this might be crazy. I said to my husband, I'm like, I think this helped. So every little thing that, I added, like it was like the crystals. And again, like I didn't really believe it. I believed it in the moment, but did I believe it? But it's tangible. It's tangible. Like whatever you're, when I started coaching, I realized that, sometimes people need the feminine. And sometimes people need the masculine. Over this particular rosary, it doesn't have it, but usually a rosary has a cross, and the cross is the symbol of the masculine, and the Mary is the symbol of the feminine. And I would just rub it, and that became very tangible. It actually helped me trust my intuition for how I was helping others, because I wasn't trusting the guidance that was coming in for how I was coaching. I was not really I really hadn't grounded into my own intuition, and being like, what I was going to say was not going to be coming from me, but I thought I was doing it for them. I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me.
Okay. That's good. You do it for you. And I was to tell you, there's so many different tools like that. Like you pulled up that rosary. Some people use mala beads. Some people use, my friend sent me years ago. I use it like a little evil eye to ward off darkness and hold it.
Yes.
And your point of the tangible, I think what I've learned over the years is that when we connect with spirit or trust our intuition, we don't actually need anything tangible. Like in truth, we can just connect, but so many of us don't trust it, or we need something to ground us, that these tools can be, that's what they are. They're tools.
Yeah.
So as we practice that muscle, these are little drums from other cultures, in South America or Central America. And I don't know, I have lots of little tools on my thing here that, these are from India. Different people use different types of beads or holdings. Oops, I'm dropping.
Or colors, like colors. You have like all these colors going, but like we've talked about the rose, right? We've got a lot of that frequency. There is something about the frequency. So really, when it comes down to all of this, all of these are carrying a frequency, and those frequencies help us rely on our own guidance. And I think that that's why different people are drawn to different things. There's a different frequency that you may need that's specific to you, right? Or I need a different frequency. It's often like why we're drawn to different colors.
Coral.
Yeah. So there's a significance with your color, and like maybe what chakra is either needs a little boosting, or that's like where your gifts are coming through with that frequency. So that's kind of a whole other tangent.
That's all right. And we could go off on tangents if you know us both, you know that pretty well. But what other tools do you have? Because I like, we put up a few others. Do you want to share a couple others that?
Yeah, one of the things that really helps me is when I first started noticing is angel numbers. And this book actually goes through, every number, but not every number, obviously. But I really noticed, for me, and everybody has their own significance to numbers, but the triples, like 1111, 2222, 3333. And they have guided me at times. I have a very strong connection to the ones. And I don't know if this is what it is, but it's my numerology. Like I am a 1 on numerology. So it makes sense that
you would see those.
That's the number that really resonates. I see a lot of 2s and 4s, but 1s are like something that really, and there was a significant decision I had to make, and I was fighting the intuitive hit because it was hard. And then I saw the 2s and I went, that was a sign. So for me, my guides, it's usually like my loved ones, but I have a team now of like people that, I feel like help me with my intuition, like help me connect to that. The angel, right? Like the angel archetype is able to connect to the divine through. So it's like, whatever tool it is And I think everybody's different. So that's
I
why
agree.
like what I connect to might be different than what you connect to.
Right.
There is no right way. There's no one right way.
That's one thing that I love about this work. And then like, connecting with people like you, our friend Christian, others, there is no one right path. There is no one right tool. So lean into what might work for you or help ground your energy or put you in that place where you can be silent and connect and receive the information. I think that's a lot of what it's about. And sometimes, like you brought up the numbers, and we don't always have to know the significance of each number, like the triple ones or the,
Yeah.
I was seeing patterns for a while. It was like 28, no particular significance. And it doesn't have a certain meaning sometimes, but when we notice the patterns of something showing up repeatedly, it's like, to me, that's a sign.
Yeah.
Stop and pay attention. Like, what is going on around you? What do I need to know? The same thing. Another one for me is song lyrics, or hearing, or the lyric of a song, but you hear someone out in your life say that exact phrase, or you hear it in the media, and it's not like, are those words the message, or do those words mean, oh, stop and pay attention to what is the bigger picture? And so I think there's a lot of ways to just learn to start to tap in, but I find that the biggest way that I have learned is by taking that action step, like taking it to the next level and putting whatever information comes through into action, and then noticing what that feels like in my life, in my body. How could I refine it? Because everything is information, right? This intuitive stuff is information. So how can we trust it? And if you don't trust it, maybe the question, sometimes I work with clients, is like, just stop and ask, how can I trust it?
Right.
What do I need to know, spirit? Like, what are you trying to tell me? What is it that I can't see or can't hear? And stop. And this was one of the things I struggled with, was stopping and pausing to actually hear. Or, we don't actually all hear audibly, but the information just comes, like there's just a knowing it. I've done a whole episode on the 8 players. There's different ways to pick up information. You can look at that episode. I remember over a year ago, Catherine Ann Esch and I did another episode like this of connecting with spirit and different tools. There's different ways, there's different peoples, but if you're interested, you could reach out to Sandra or myself or anyone. When you get, another thing I tell clients is, when you get that intuitive hit of who might be a good guide for you, or a teacher or a mentor, take action on that. Might not be us, but you might be out there seeking, I want to trust myself more. I want to trust these messages more.
Right.
Yeah. So like, what is it? Do you have any tips you can give on noticing in your body, like what it feels like information feels like in your body for people, if that's the way they perceive information?
Yeah. Well, I'm an Enneagram coach, but it's actually in almost every spiritual tradition. And actually, I'm really diving into the gene keys. And he just gave a really, really, Richard Rudd just gave a really, really great explanation. But in general, there's, we talk about being at a lower frequency, being at a higher frequency. And when we're at this lower frequency, we've come off center. Okay. And so the Enneagram, that's basically what it's based on, is your 3 centers of intelligence. And while we know we have, through science, we know we have 3 brains. We have a brain in the heart, we have a brain in the head, we have a brain in the gut. We have 3 centers of intelligence. We have our head, we have our heart, we have our gut. And so 3 of the personality types are going to be oriented toward the body, the gut. 3 are going to be oriented toward the heart, and 3 are going to be oriented toward the head, meaning that's where they take in their information. It's where they're going to lean on the hardest. And when that happens, what we are doing is we're cutting off the other intelligence. And so what the pause, when we talk about the pause, when it's like, take notice, it's an external coming toward us as an opportunity to get the 3 centers of intelligence in alignment. That's what really a pause is about. Like when we talk about presence, that's what presence is about. So for me, I'm in the head. Kat happens to be in the head. For us, it's like, right, we're way in our head. Like we have to get present and drop the energy down And for me, I'm heart repressed. So it's drop enough energy down to be able to tap into my heart.
Yeah.
Right. For Kat, it's like drop the energy down so that her head can get clear enough that she can rely on it. So each person's personality will speak differently about how they come into presence. That's what the different personality types are, because it's energy centric. But truly, it's like anything that helps you, whether it's a breath, whether it's grounding your feet, whether it's noticing something around, whether it's, having a moment of gratitude. It's being able to come in, get centered. And from that place, now ask the question, right? Like now sit in that intuition and go, because here's the truth. We can make up things and call it guidance. Because, and this is a little bit, must be, I think I'm being channeled a little bit here, but it's like, because we're becoming our own God is what we're doing. Like we're losing connection to source, and we want what we want. So the sun becomes, we're all everything. And we're trying to control the world according to us. And we start thinking that what we're thinking or what we're feeling, or, that gut, that's outer guidance. And it's the trickster.
That trickster archetype, or the trickster energy. The
trickster is saying that's guidance, and really it's self-serving. So, that's, you really have to, part of intuition is not 100% self-serving.
Right.
That's another little, I think, little trip is like, if it's all about you 100%.
Right. And if it's the other thing, if it's about fear, it's usually not the intuition either.
100%.
Right. So
intuition never, ever comes in fear. Now you may have fear as a response to it.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have enough self-esteem to do that. That's normal.
Right. So that's
but not the other way around.
Right. I think that's where like the gifts of noticing and the gift of discernment becomes so important. Right.
Absolutely.
We have to notice and observe these things, but what you're saying too about getting into the body is knowing what things feel like in our body and developing a baseline for it, so that when the trickster shows up, or when the ego, like this ego inside of us, like, oh, I really want to do this, but it isn't really the thing that's in our highest good or for us, we learn to listen, like to discern.
That's
what am I going to do? The other thing I've learned, there is no right or wrong. We just do it. And then we get that feedback and that information, and we learn either way. We learn to trust it because it worked out, or we learn that when we took that ungrounded or egoic approach and it might not have worked out the way we wanted, or for our highest good, that's also feedback and information. So if we approach all of this as like an experiment and a learning,
that's right,
then we really start to learn how to trust it better, because we learn about ourselves. That's at least part of my approach.
No, I think it's true, because what sometimes that's showing is where your own shadow is. Like, where's your shadow, and what helped derail you is not really what's outside of you, but it's the shadow within. I mean, there's like classic, stories of, people who have said they've been guided, by God, drink the Kool-Aid. And, they probably really felt like they were guided by God. And I'd say probably a lot of shadow there that was self-serving for their self. And so when you can help, part of getting to presence is you've connected to source. You're in the, we are all one. You're in the high. That's why, when we do this work, we go, what's in the highest good for all. And that's really hard sometimes for us to really digest, because it's like, but I want it for me, or I want it for my loved one. And it's like, no, it's the highest good of
all
all.
involved. Yeah. And sometimes I forget to ask that question and go off on those tangents, but there are so many things that we can do for that. I remember I'm going through a rebrand, right? And I'll call Sandra up and I'm like, I got some questions. I don't know what to do. And she's like, get a piece of paper and write the thing on a paper and write the other thing, the other choice on a paper, and then just go stand on it and see what that feels like in your body. And, and you can ask these filtering questions like, well, what is in my highest good and the highest good for all? And when we're grounded in our truth, the information starts to bubble up that is, I don't say the best or the most accurate, but the most trust that we can trust in the most usually comes up. But we have, for those of us that live in our head, you talked about the head, the heart, and the gut, depending on where you live. For me, being grounded, I will say, especially on Clubhouse, I get out of my head, or help people out of their head and into their heart or into their body to bring it down into the gut, which is I'm learning I need to work a little more on for myself. But in that grounded state, like you said, bringing the energy down into us, and being in that grounded place. For those of us that ruminate or in the head too much, really that groundedness helps this discernment process. Where we can eventually do it naturally without having to use all the tools. It's it's a muscle.
Yeah, it's
like
a muscle.
The tools are just a way to help us get there.
Yeah, I think the two is the being able to accept whatever in intuition. So I think a lot of now it's this maybe it's just me, but when I hear a lot of this, I feel like the words are around manifesting. So it's like people only want to put this word intuition into I'm going to bring something positive into my life. Well, I just drove somebody to do some probate work for her family, and she was telling me that her parents deceased, and she was telling me that she had this intuitive hit that her dad was going to die right after her mother died. And that's one of the things. It's you oftentimes will get intuitive hits that aren't necessarily something that you actually want to happen. And so I think when we really can step into that groundedness, first of all, first thing, if that happened to me, I'd be like, is that fear? Is it fear? And then, okay, no, I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't stressing about that. I wasn't it's something just flipped out of the air. Usually for me, when I know I'm not having any conscious thought about this, and all of a sudden I get this boom, and I'm like, okay, that at least is a little bit of a sign for me that that's not me manufacturing something, because I'm usually pretty aware of what I'm thinking. Because I think a lot. It's like a paintbrush. I mean, it's just let's just paint the whole wall with every thought we ever thought about anything. So it's if I go, wow, I wasn't even thinking about that. But we have to, it's just being able to ground that into the body and just being able to accept. So, allowing, accepting, embracing is our three really key aspects. It's actually something that I just heard from Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys, but it's really my coaching, my Enneagram coaching, basically that was our same model too. The first step is to allow, allow the intuition to come in whatever form it does. And then whether it's good, whether it's bad, is just to accept and then be able to, and just embrace the process. And it doesn't, if you get an intuitive hit, it doesn't tell you how, when, or sometimes even why. It's not going to answer all the things that we want all the time. Carolyn Mace just talked about too. She was talking about, she calls it grace, right? These intuitive hits. She says they don't repeat. And that was such an interesting thing. And I'm she's they're flashes. And she goes, if you hesitate, if you dismiss, they don't come back. I thought about that and I was like, yes and no. I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of them that come through and they are flashes. there's some for me that I'll say will keep repeating. It's almost like maybe it is, my angels, they're like, you didn't hear, we're going to show it again. And this is Metatron. It's like one of the Metatron's cube. And this is like one of the things that like dropped in for me. I had no cognitive knowledge about the intelligence of this. And yesterday we were driving to meet our other friend down in Boston. And here is a work van that's like a carpenter, it's like all the information, but on the front part of the van is Metatron's cube. I've never seen this except in like, your woo-woo stores. I've never seen this in any application in the physical world. And it's painted on the side of a van. I mean, if that wasn't like, hello. Now, truth is, do I absolutely know what it means? No. Is it a sign? Absolutely.
We get to choose to interpret the signs, but it was cool. We were driving and she's like, there's Metatron. Like, what is that? No, so if you're in the car, that's you're like 2 Fruit Loops. But we were talking this morning about what does that sign mean? And it's up to us to interpret the information sometimes. And we decided in this case, like that van that you saw, that we're on the right path for us. We're on the right journey. We're stepping in, we're driving, we're going to meet our third counterpart in this world.
We're driving.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I was driving.
We're on the path.
We're on the right path. We're on the right road, whatever metaphor interpretation that you want. But these things pop up and we can dismiss them or overlook them. And, we're humans. We like to make meaning out of things, but we can really sit with it. And what does this mean? Or what does this mean for me? And I think as we evolve, we start to take the black and whiteness out of it. Like it's not good or bad or right or wrong or extremes. It just is. And it just is information. And we can choose to do with it what we want. We all have free will, or interpret it how we want, or just ask for more clarity. And now, our reticulating, I can't even speak today, activating system will be on the lookout for more Metatron's cubes in not just online and in these spaces that we gather, but in the real world, in the outside world. So it'll be interesting. We'll have to report back, but hopefully you've enjoyed some of our musings on this topic. We're going to have to go. We've been going for a while. Sandra, any last words or thoughts that you want to share to people on this topic about being guided or feeling guided or trusting your intuition before we wrap?
Well, this is going to be a bigger concept, but as we move into this Aquarian age, when we're coming into the collective energy, the first thing that really has to happen is we have to individuate. And to be able to individuate, we have to be able to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
And to be able to trust ourselves, we have to start building this relationship with our intuition, like our internal guidance system. That is what is right for me. What's my compass? And a lot of us have been programmed that someone else is going to tell us what that is. And this is a shift for all of us. And so while it might sound woo-woo, we are all being pressed, and it started in the States, it started with COVID, I think. And it's like, we have to get to this place where we just settle in to ourselves. And I think we're just being called for it, to trust and to have faith in self. If you do not have faith and trust in self, you will never have it in the collective. You cannot have collective trust and faith if you don't have individual faith and trust. So I'll just leave it there. I mean, that's kind of my hill to die for, I guess.
Well, don't die on me too soon. We've got more work to do.
I
want to talk to you on this side of the veil, not the other side. But thank you for all that and sharing your thoughts and having fun and visiting and being live with us today, or, instead of us both on separate Zooms. It's been really a pleasure and a gift. I'm so excited. And hopefully you've gotten value out of today too, if you are still watching, but check back next time, because I'm going to be making changes based on those papers that I need to stand on to, decide where I'm going to go and what direction. And if you are struggling with trusting yourself, guidance, intuition, source, other people, and need some support, just ask yourself, how can I get there? How can I begin to trust myself again? How can I begin to trust my intuition, and who can support me on that? And whatever information bubbles up, listen to that and then take the action step, take it out into your life and definitely take the action. Don't sit and wait on it. No more hesitation. I loved how you use that word hesitate. So that's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining Kreatrix. Again, thanks for being here with me, Sandra. Always a pleasure and a gift.
Always.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.